The Clippers and the Suns, the 4-5 matchup. The Clippers, a team that doesn't know each other. They're strangers. They literally do not practice. They barely play together. But Kawhi Leonard has been nuts the second half of the season. He looks like Kawhi Leonard that we all think about when we hear the name Kawhi Leonard. And the Suns, well, they have Kevin Durant, who's playing like an MVP. He shot 62% on twos this year, guys, mostly jumpers. 55, 40, 90 shooting splits for the season. He's first guy ever to do it. They obviously have Devin Booker. They have Chris Paul. They have DeAndre Ayton. They have four guys that can just demolish you in the mid-range. Do the Clippers have any chance whatsoever against the Suns?
I don't think there's a reason. I mean, like when we look at the Suns, they're playing 4-on-5. Their fifth guy is always going to be a question for them. And then it gets even worse when you look at the rest of their bench. Like the one thing we could say about the Clippers is they're pretty deep. They got guys down the line on that roster that can help them in this series. I think the Clippers definitely have a chance. I think it comes down to, can Kawhi play like Kawhi that we know he can? Can Russ control himself? Which, to be honest, we don't think he can. And I think that becomes an issue there. And then, after that, it's a lot of questions for everybody else. Zubac versus Ayton, I think that's a hell of a matchup. That's a, and I might even favor the Clippers with that because I love Zubac so much. He's just such a quiet killer in the way he plays. I think, you're going to need big games from Terrence Mann, Norman Powell. You're going to need Nicholas Batum to do all the little things that he does. I mean, the margin of error is slimmer for the Clippers, but they definitely have a shot. I mean, they got Kawhi, and Kawhi can really just shut down a dude. He still can defensively, and he can drop 30.
Can I read off Kawhi's stat line for the last 2 months of the season?
Please do.
No. Does anybody ever say no?
27 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, steal and a half. Shooting 53% from the floor, including 47.4 on threes and 88 from the line. Like, close your eye. Yeah, he's just the number of games where you look up and he's like, oh, he's got 36 points on 36 points on 20 shot attempts. Just the level of dominance that he's shown at times. Can they win? Like, before we get into anything else, like, they have best player in the series equity. Against a team with Kevin Durant, they have best player in the series equity. So that is just before we get to anything else, we need to acknowledge that it might be as simple as which one of these guys outduels each other between KD and Kawhi.
All right. Well, I mean, let me ask you guys this before we get to how they win. Do you guys have any chemistry concerns about the Suns? They haven't had a lot of time together. They haven't lost with Kevin Durant. I mean, he's amazing. And Mo, you did one Mo thing where you laid out how much success they've had with certain actions because he is so plug and play. But like, do you worry about chemistry issues in the playoffs with them?
I worry about it defensively, knowing when to rotate, knowing when not to, where it's coming from, and things like that, and the situations you get put into that. I don't worry about that with the Clippers because I don't think the Clippers put you in a ton of bad situations. It's going to be Kawhi in the post. It's going to be Kawhi on a pick and roll. With no Paul George, that's really what it's going to come down to. It's going to be Russ pushing the tempo, and that's really kind of it from there. And it's a lot of one-on-one isolation stuff that the Clippers run offensively. So I don't really worry about it in this series. But I'm going to push back a little bit on the chemistry stuff because you started this whole thing with like the Clippers don't even know each other. This is the no chemistry game, no chemistry series kind of deal, right? Like this is, how much time have the Clippers really had with this group without PG compared to the Suns with Kevin Durant? Like there's a little bit of that. And I think it's not I think this series is probably going to come down to individual talents more than team. And I think it's going to be really kind of fascinating. I think Seth was whichever superstar can be more superstarish is going to be I think really one of the deciding factors in this series.
All right. Well, so and
we haven't even mentioned Devin Booker.
I know.
I mean, that's really the question now for the Clippers is who guards Devin Booker? because Kawhi's probably going to take Kevin Durant. Who's guarding Book? I mean, Russ is probably taking CP. You're probably going to put Batum on Booker, which is good, but like that's
more
challenging.
Terrence Mann. More Terrence Mann.
More Terrence Mann.
More
That's
Terrence
exactly what they
Mann.
need.
And we'll find out if he can do it.
So a Clipper series win looks like Kawhi Leonard 35 a night, Zubac 20 and 15, something like that, and they win. Do you guys feel like they? I mean, is this a 7-game series to you guys, regardless, or do you think that this? I think the Suns have a higher ceiling than the Clippers because they just have room to grow. And again, Devin Booker is incredible, and we're just now getting to talk about him. But Kawhi Leonard is Kawhi. I mean, that guy, when he's healthy, he was at one point, if not the best player in the league, definitely one of the top 3 or 4. And he's starting to look like that guy again. So it's hard to count him out. So for the Clippers, like, is a win just Kawhi goes for 35 every night? They find a way to keep KD under 30 and they just grind it out for 6 or 7 games?
I mean, this is going to be a long series. I think this is going to be challenging. I think it's what you said. I don't know if Zubac can do the 20 points, but if they can get an assortment of guys going off and Norman Powell having a big night, you know, in a game or two, like it's going to be for the Clippers. It's going to be who's that random guy that's going to have a big night tonight. Terrence Mann some nights. Like that's, you know, you're going to get a good Russ game somewhere in there. Hopefully that's what the Clippers are banking on. You gotta hope that works out. And Russ, to his credit, has been very good for them. And I think he's mattered for them. I think it makes a difference because Paul George is out, that he is that kind of guy that can have the ball more in his hands and push and attack a little bit more and be more Russ. I think that's going to be an important factor too. This one's going to be interesting. I still have the Suns kind of winning this in 6. I don't think this will be a 7-game series. I just think at the end of the day, it becomes challenging with I just think KD's too damn good. And I think you have a Booker getting your second best defender is really a problem.
I have no idea about the series. I don't feel like we know anything about either of these teams. I mean, we mentioned that Phoenix hasn't lost with KD playing. Do you know how many top 6 seeds they've played in those games?
Oh no.
0, right?
Well, no, 2. Denver twice, but Denver sat all their guys both games. So they've played a couple of play-in teams, but other than that, they've beaten lottery teams, which is good. You beat the guys who are in front of you, but it's a different challenge. So I again, all the indicators are positive for both teams, but how much do you read into any of them? And then we're just going to have to see it. I think I'm with Mo that I lean Phoenix, but I would not be surprised by anything between a 5-game win for Phoenix to a 5-game win for LA.
Do the Clippers have enough shooting?
Yeah.
That's the tough part.
I mean, it's what it is it's kind of just some streaky shooters. Right. And that's one of those things, like they have guys that have reputations as shooters and guys that can score. But it is really up and down with them. And I think that's kind of my question with them. And, you know, this really is the no chemistry series. They played 30 starting lineups this year for the Clippers alone. I mean, like that's a tough thing to settle.
You guys worry about the Suns' depth?
I do. I worry about their depth and also just the again, to get back to what Mo said, like how much does the Clippers shooting matter if the Suns can't get weird on Kawhi, either because of personnel or they just haven't developed the chemistry to be able to execute kind of, you know, any kind of trapping, run and jump, junky defense kind of stuff, which I don't think Monty Williams does a ton of anyway. So as Mo was saying, the reputation of guys as shooters might be enough to give Kawhi the room he needs to win the series largely single-handedly offensively.
What does the Suns win look like? Is it just KD 30, Booker 30? You know, is it just, okay, these guys are just going to hit every shot?
It's Chris Paul hitting threes. Because that's who you're going to leave. And that's who they're going to attack defensively. But it's Chris Paul that needs to hit threes. That's honestly what it's going to come down to. And really, and the other guys will matter. Torrey Craig, Terrence Ross, Josh Okogie, those guys have to be big. I think, like I said earlier, DeAndre Ayton and Zubac is probably more of a wash than we want to admit. It's going to come down to they're going to leave Chris Paul to go double KD and Booker. It's can Chris make them pay for that? And that's going to be a very important aspect for them in this series because I think Booker and KD will get theirs. They're too damn good.
I'm glad you brought up Ayton and Zubac again, because I think if we get the Ayton we saw for most of the 2021 playoffs, I think this series is a pretty easy Phoenix win. In part because LA doesn't have a lot of other options there, give or take a Plumlee. And they want to, like, LA probably wants to get to play small. But if Ayton is being aggressive and pounding the offensive glass and getting to the rim and playing with that force that we saw him play through 2 games of the finals, basically in 21, I think that almost takes that card off the table for LA. And it's just a huge swing in because Phoenix is going to have to. Phoenix can't play small because they've got 4 dudes. So if he kind of takes the small ball card off the table or makes it unpalatable for the Clippers to play, I think that's a huge advantage for the Suns.